Hello, and a very warm welcome to Saints Live with me, Kenzie Benali.
And me, Steve Forbes.
I'm loving the tinsel, very nice
Thank you.
indeed. We hope you all had a very Merry Christmas. But in the blink of an eye, the Boxing Day fixtures are upon us. So Southampton make the trip to the London Stadium to take on West Ham. You have a good day yesterday?
Yeah, not bad. Overindulged as always. Too much turkey, too much
Yeah,
chocolate.
that's what it's all about. You got to do it.
You have indeed, you have indeed. Now, joining us to talk about today's game, we have former Saints captain Dean Hammond and NBC's lead soccer writer Joe Prince. Right, Dean, you strike me as a man who has a rather healthy Christmas dinner. You steer away from the goose fat potatoes.
You'd be wrong, Steve, to be honest. I used to when I played, but now, no. Like you say, overindulged and really enjoyable. It was lovely, really nice Christmas day until the kids had too much chocolate. And then,
Lovely stuff.
survival, I think. But it's good fun, really good fun.
Good stuff, good stuff. And Joe, I believe you're transatlantic for today.
I am. I'm over in New York, so happy holidays, everyone. And discovered the wonders of eggnog over here, which has a lot more alcohol in it than I thought. So I had a really good Christmas.
Fantastic stuff. Right, well, we've got team news coming up in about 15 minutes' time. We're unsure about COVID cases, but Ralph did say in his press conference on Thursday that the squad was okay on that front. Alex McCarthy is still out, but Fraser Forster is back in contention. Adam Armstrong's available after injury against Arsenal, and Shea Adams and Stuart Armstrong, they've been training, so they could come back into the fold today too.
Well, Joe, assuming there are no COVID cases, what team selection decisions are you expecting Ralph to go with for today's match?
Well, there's so many options, right? When you look at actually the injuries, the situation there has calmed down a lot, which is really good. Intrigued to see if Willie Caballero stays in goal and maybe Fraser Forster comes back because he's now fully fit. So I think Caballero did pretty well against Crystal Palace. So that's one area I'm really looking at. Elsewhere, I just think that some of the partnerships that have built up across the team, obviously Ward-Prowse and Romeo, those two are solid as ever in midfield. And up top, I'm intrigued to see if Armando Broa, if he starts again. He's been in such good form in recent weeks, and who starts alongside him, because would like to see him and Shea Adams up top together. I think they'd be a real handful. But like I said, so many combinations, especially in the number 10 positions as well, with reports about Stuart Armstrong coming back. I think all Southampton fans, myself included, are really excited to see him back on the pitch as soon as possible, because we know how influential he is. And looking at some of the stats when he has played this season, Saints have won and done very well in games. So I think he is a huge bonus to have back on Boxing Day if he does start today. So a lot of options, which is a good thing. But I think now it's all about Ralph getting those combinations right up and down the pitch.
Yeah, Stuart Armstrong's one of the members of the squad which could come back into contention today, Dean, along with the likes of Shea Adams, Adam Armstrong, and Fraser Forster. So how do you see Ralph lining up today?
Very similar to what Joe's just mentioned. I think it would be great for the team if Fraser Forster was fit and could come back into contention and selection, because he's a very, very good goalkeeper. I think, like Joe mentioned, the interesting positions will be the attacking positions, what their selection the manager goes with. I think Bro is a must. I think he's been excellent. I think his goal against Crystal Palace was very, very good, and he's improving all the time. Nathan Tedder, I think he's started the last 4 games now, I think, and is improving all the time. Whether he will partner Bro up front or go into a wide position. But then, like you say, Stuart Armstrong. If Stuart Armstrong's fit, I'd love to see him play, because I think he's such an important player for Southampton. Just brings something different to the team and can help improve the team. And then at centre half, Lianco's has done okay. I think he's finding his feet and improving all the time. Will Bednarak come back in? The central midfield position is pretty solid, and probably, they select straight away. James Ward-Prowse and Boya Romeo, very, very good players, and they've got a very good partnership. So I think it's the attacking positions, what players Ralph will go for, but huge options, lots of lots of very, very good players. And I think they'll look to attack West Ham today, and try and take the game to West Ham. So it will be interesting on the team selection.
It certainly will be. Well, Joe, another player we should talk in more depth about is Will Smallbone, who obviously started for the first time this season against Crystal Palace 10 days ago, which was great to see. For you, should he keep his place in the side?
He didn't do anything wrong. Kenzie didn't harm his chances at all after being out for so long. Obviously, he's going to be a little bit rusty coming in, but I like the way that The coaching staff have really eased him back into it. He's had a few substitute appearances now and then stepped up when they needed him to. And yeah, he is such a big talent. You kind of forget because he was out so long with that really bad knee injury. It's taken him a while to come back. But I remember talking to him after, I think it was his first Premier League start against Aston Villa way back in February 2020. And he was so delighted to play. Obviously, he's a local lad, come up through the academy, loves the club. And I think as we're seeing here in the clip, the last thing we really need to see from him is that finishing touch, final pass, scoring, having a decent shot on target. He has got that in his locker if he's playing on those more advanced midfield positions. We've seen that. He scored in the FA Cup in the past. So I think now that will just come back with time once he gets a little bit of that rust shaken off. But a great, great talent. And as I said, kind of falls under the radar a little bit because he's been out for so long. But it's certainly great to have him back. And he gives a lot of options because he's flexible. He can play in the two slightly deeper midfield positions, but can play in either of the number 10 positions too. So a great squad player. And as I said, a player that clearly loves the club, will do anything for the club, and a really nice lad as well. So it's a great story after all the injury struggles and off-field struggles he's had. And he has a great personality and character. And you only have to see the way that Ward-Prowse and other players speak about him to show how highly he's regarded within the squad.
Yeah, very much so. Dean, a second ago you mentioned Armando Broja's goal against Crystal Palace. He played in that forward line with Nathan Tella. How do you think both of them did in that game? And could their pace up front be something that really troubles West Ham today?
I thought they were both excellent, Steve. For two players that are so young, I think Broja's 20 and Nathan Tella's 22. I think they caused Crystal Palace all sorts of problems with their enthusiasm, their willingness to run in behind. Both very, very physically fit, strong, very, very quick, forward-thinking players. I think that's the best thing. When they both get the ball, they're brave. They like to take a risk. They're forward-thinking. Can I get a shot off? Can I take someone on? Can I commit someone? Both very, very exciting players and caused Crystal Palace real problems with their ability to run with the ball. And like I say, be brave and make good decisions on the ball. Nathan Tella, like I said, has started 4 games in a row now, I think, and is improving all the time. Broja's scored 4 Premier League goals so far this season. I think 6 in all competitions, so he's improving all the time. And I thought they performed very, very well. And if you look at it, at the Crystal Palace game, their movement caused Crystal Palace problems. I think you can do the same again today for West Ham. I was watching the highlights of the Arsenal game when Arsenal beat West Ham, and it was the movement from maybe that's the forward players from out wide to narrow in between the fullback and the centre half that caused West Ham real problems. And they've got some defensive issues at the moment, which has caused them some problems of late, and probably why their form has dipped so much. So we mentioned it a minute ago. The attacking options that Southampton do have is very, very good. And one thing that them options have is pace, intensity, and I think that can cause West Ham problems today. But they both did very, very well. So it will be interesting what Ralph goes with today because there's some real options up front.
It'll be very interesting indeed. And of course, we will be bringing you that team news in less than 10 minutes' time. But given the current climate, there is always a possibility that some players may be missing. And Ralph spoke in his recent press conference about the COVID situation.
At the minute, do you live in fear of that phone call coming, telling you a positive test? Is it a nervous moment every day when you get the COVID results through?
No, not really. We have a big squad, so yes, it is. As long as I see that we are sticking to the rules and trying to avoid any risk, and I trust my players also 100% when they're not here. They know what they have to do at home. They know how they have to avoid risk at home, and then I'm absolutely positive because so far we had gone through this period in a good way. That doesn't mean that we had no cases. From 1-2 cases you can always have, but not like an outbreak from 10, 12 or 13 players.
Ralph, talking about the COVID situation at Southampton just now, but 3 out of today's 9 games are suspended because of coronavirus. Joe, how do you assess the position that the Premier League is in at the moment when dealing with this?
It's really not an easy situation. I think obviously they've had the meetings with the clubs, the players, the managers. They've tried to come to the best decision for everybody, but it's such a fluid situation, club by club. squad by squad. It's changing all the time. I don't think having a break was the right decision. I just think that there are enough games that can go on each match week. Obviously, certain clubs are impacted. We've seen the likes of Burnley, Watford, several other teams, Tottenham previously, that hadn't played for a very long time. And that's going to impact them, of course. They'll be playing catch up for quite a few months now. But I think at the moment, while it can still be managed and the rule is clearly in place about having 14 fit players, 13 outfield with one goalkeeper, I think that's fair enough. And yes, clubs, if they are impacted heavily, will still have to lean on their academy players, under 21 players, given the ruling that even if an under 21 player has played 1 second in a professional game abroad or in the UK, then they are deemed as a first team player. That's the rules, and that's the way it is. So I think it's a good decision for now to carry on and go back to the emergency protocols that we first saw during Project Restart and be as safe as possible. Because I do think that even if games are called off now, there is plenty of time. Even though there's the FA Cup and international breaks coming up, there's still plenty of time in March and April, midweek, to make up a lot of these games. And some teams, it may suit them a bit better. They might understand the argument about the balance of the schedule for certain clubs. If it's, Tottenham with Antonio Conte as a new manager, or Ranieri at Watford, they now have more time to work on a tactic and philosophy with their playing squad. So that may help them out later in the season. But I think Dean will agree, getting points on the board is definitely preferable to having a lot of games to make up, especially late in the season. So I think it kind of evens out, to be honest, Steve. So very difficult situation, but obviously delighted to see that the vast majority of games are still going ahead on Boxing Day, and hopefully that stays the same. And it's just a short kind of impact on the Premier League for the next few weeks, and get through that, and then things get back to normal as we head into January in the new year.
Well, it's not just been COVID making the headlines, Dean. There's a lot of chat around player welfare in the news at the moment. Do you think that player workload does need addressing? And do you think that these short breaks in fixtures that are being spoken about would be a good thing in your eyes?
I'm really unsure, Kenzie, if I'm honest, because as a player, you just want to play matches. I don't think you want too many breaks. You want that momentum. You want that amount of games and that structure within your season. It's a really interesting debate. I mean, how you would do it. Would there be a fixture congestion? I'm not too sure. I think if you look at the modern day football, the size of the squads that the Premier League teams have can cope with these sort of situations. And this is why they invest so heavily in big squads. So it gives players opportunities. I think with the scientific work and evidence that clubs have now on workload and effort that players put in on body loading in training and in games, and the evidence they have of that, then there's a really good understanding of where a player is at individually and where a team is. So whether a player needs a rest or needs to be taken out. And it's difficult because not every player is the same. How are you going to judge it? You've got international players that play all the time that don't get a rest, but then you get players that are not internationals that will get a rest during that international break. So they do get a chance to recover. So it's really, really tough. Where would you bring it in? Could you, I don't know, could you have the Premier League teams that come in maybe even a round later in the FA Cup? So they come in at the 4th round. So potentially they could have that 2-week break just after January and then start the Premier League fixtures mid-January again. So it would give that 2-week break. Whether that work, how you would organise that, I don't know. So I think it's really up for debate. And obviously with players, they have that personal responsibility of how they conduct themselves away from the pitch as well in terms of recovery when they're not at the football club. So personally, I don't think it's needed. I think it's been going on long enough now. The players know how to look after themselves, how the season works. I think it would disrupt things if I'm totally honest. So as a former player, I wouldn't like to see it, but I could see it happening on the other hand as well.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting debate, isn't it? And lots of you have been getting in touch on our social channels, telling us your thoughts ahead of today's match. We'll read through a few of those comments in just a moment's time. Lots of you going for a Saints win, though, which is great to see. But of course, the big chat is around the team news, and we can bring you that now. So let's take a look at the way the Saints line up to take on West Ham today. Fraser Forster does start in goal. Theo Walcott also back back in and may play through the middle with Armando Broja. We'll have to wait and see. Stuart Armstrong and Adam Armstrong are both available from the bench. Something else worth noting, Danel Semeo is in the matchday squad for the first time, and Nathan Teller has tested positive for COVID, which explains his absence. Obviously, there are a couple of other absentees from the squad. We're not too sure why that is just yet, but of course, we'll do our best to find out and let you know. So let's take a look at that team news in full then. In goal, and as I said, making his first Premier League appearance this season is Fraser Forster. The back four, Carl Walker-Peters, Mohamed Salisu, Jan Bednarek and Tino Livramento. In the midfield are captain James Ward-Prowse and Oriol Romeu. And then the front four, Theo Walcott, Nathan Redmond, Moy Elyounoussi and Armando Broja. So Dean, let's come to you first then on that one. What do you make of today's starting 11?
Strong team. Good to see Fraser Forster back. I think it's good for him to get that opportunity again and be the number one while McCarthy's out. I think that's a real positive. Where Theo Walcott will play will be interesting. I agree with you, Kenzie. I think he might go centrally through the middle. Potentially Nathan Redmond could go up front and Walcott could play wide, but I don't see that. I think Nathan Redmond's been more influential in that wide position and has been in good form of late. Elyounoussi coming back, it is good. I like, the way he supports the forward plays. He gets into the box. Good all-round midfield player. And Broja starting again, who's in very, very good form. So an attacking team, a strong team. And Bednarek coming back in as well. Good experience, good defender. And him and Salisu have probably been the best partnership together this season. So very, very strong. So yeah, it's good to see an attacking team, and I think that can cause West Ham some problems.
Well, Joe, at the top of the show, you mentioned the importance of Ralph getting the combinations right on all areas of the pitch. Has he done that here for you today?
I think so. I think obviously Jack Stevens missing is the only one that maybe say he'd come in at centre-back. But aside from that, central midfield, Romeo and Ward-Prowse look good in central midfield. Up top, I'm really intrigued to see, as Dean mentioned there, who plays with Broa, if it is Redmond or Walcott. I think Redmond actually, those two link up really well, him and Broa in attack. They seem to really have a good connection and a lot of good movement. And I don't think Broa gets the sort of praise for his pace as well. He can stretch teams, which I'm looking at there and thinking Elyounoussi and Walcott or Redmond, whoever plays in those number 10 positions, they can really overload Declan Rice and Souček there in that midfield area for West Ham, because their fullbacks, Kufau and Masuaku, really like to get on. But so do Walker-Peters and Livramento. So those battles out wide there, I think, will be key to this game. I think where Saints could get some joy is if Elyounoussi can get on the ball and turn, and Redmond or Walcott can get on the ball and turn in those inside number 10 positions. I think Saints will have a lot of joy there. So West Ham, very tough team to play against, but I do think injuries or COVID issues aside, this is a very strong Southampton team. And looking at the bench, Adam Armstrong, Stuart Armstrong and Shay Adams, try and say that 10 times. Having those three on the bench is very strong and helps Saints out a lot.
Yeah, a bit of a tongue twister, that one. Say that after a few eggnogs, Joe. Well, let's get the thoughts of the fans then, shall we? What they think of that team news. We've got a comment here from Mark who says, great to see Big Fraser in. Pamela's also got in touch. She says, 3 points today, please. Philip Palmer, he says, listening in from Vietnam. A bit worried about the opposition, predicting another score draw. Matthew Sussex has said, take a draw today. A few people agreeing with that one, actually. Rick Hughes says, wish we could win, but West Ham been playing well. I would take a draw. Curtis Phillips, hello to you. He says this would be a massive 3 points. We've got a comment here from Saints Paris on YouTube. He says, Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas to you as well. And Corinne's also left us this comment. She says, 3-1 win for the Saints today. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
It certainly would be. We have already played West Ham this season. It was a tightly fought 0-0 draw at St Mary's earlier in the year. Dean, if memory serves me correctly, that was one where both yourself and Joe joined us on Saints Live in person. Other than the chance of meeting me, what do you remember from that game?
Well, like you say, Steve, I think it was the first show we did live, which was great. Really good atmosphere at St Mary's that afternoon. First clean sheet of the season, I believe, as well. And a very competitive game. Not a lot in it. Southampton played well. West Ham, obviously a strong season. They've had a really, really good start to the season and continued that on from last season. But I mean, I think the biggest thing that I remember was the introduction of Brozier. When he came on from the bench, watching the game live, we could really appreciate the physical side of him. Could appreciate the speed and the power that he had. He came on, hit the post, made a real impact on the game, and almost won it for Southampton, as we've seen in the highlights. And then the chance at the end with his header, like I say, used his presence and his spring and cleared off the line. So he made a real impact. And like I say, his first introduction and seeing him live, I was very, very impressed. So no, a good performance from Southampton. I think it was the third draw of the season, so they were picking up some points. The performances were pretty good and were growing at the time. So a good all-round performance. Just couldn't quite get that goal, but from the day, the biggest thing I remember is the performance and introduction of Brozier, because he was very, very good.
Well, Joe, Mikel Antonio was sent off in that game. He has overcome COVID and is on the bench for West Ham today. He's West Ham's leading goal scorer and leading assist maker. So should he come on today, just how big a threat is he for Southampton?
He is a threat, and yeah, we were talking, Dean and I, about this before the game, remembering Mikel Antonio and how far he's come from the League One team when he was a really raw young winger out wide and scored in the JPT final. I'm sure a lot of Saints fans will look back on that very fondly. Yeah, no doubt about it, he's West Ham's main man, but he has gone through a bit of a lean spell. He hasn't scored in his last 8 Premier League games. And actually covering the USA national team, I watched him play for Jamaica. He scored an absolute beauty from outside the box for Jamaica against the USA in a World Cup qualifier. And I think a lot of that traveling back and forward really impacted him, because we know he's had a lot of hamstring injuries. He's now obviously had added international football to his schedule, which he didn't have previously. I think maybe he's just learning about that and how to manage himself, and he hasn't really been at his best in the last few weeks. So it's kind of ominous that he hasn't been at his best, because it always seems like he causes Saints a lot of problems. A very good option off the bench for West Ham to have, and they'll be delighted that he can play, because he gives them something different. I mean, Jared Bowen is very good, but a different kind of player, much better coming off the wing, and Ben Rama and Fornals, those players all very tricky and can knit the attacks together. But Antonio just gives West Ham a totally different dimension on the counter-attack. And as we saw when Saints played against Crystal Palace last time out, that is one area where they seem to struggle a little bit on the counter. Palace had a lot of chances there. So I think that's an area where if late in the game and it's tight, Saints will have to be a little bit wary if Antonio does come off the bench. He can stretch the game with his power and pace behind, and he can also hold the ball up as well. And we know he can score fantastic goals out of nothing. So, yeah, hasn't been in great form like West Ham generally. So that's maybe a good thing. But obviously, Saints haven't done too well against West Ham in recent seasons. So I've got that in the back of my mind as a Southampton fan.
Dean, as Kenzie mentioned during the team news, it is Fraser Forster's first Premier League appearance of the season. So how good an opportunity would this be for him to stake a place as the number one?
Brilliant, because he's been really unlucky. When McCarthy's come out and been injured, for him to not be fit and available for selection is unfortunate for him. But he's a very, very good goalkeeper. From last season when he came in and performed very, very well in the FA Cup. And then there was a period in last season where there was that rotation between him and McCarthy, and performed very, very well. So I'm really pleased that he's got that opportunity. He's a big presence, very, very calm. He looks like in his personality, makes some very, very good saves. Shot stopping, difficult to beat, and I think he'll make a difference today. I think he really will. It's so important to have a goalkeeper behind you for the defenders that you're confident in, that you're comfortable in, whether it's passing the ball back to them, whether it's knowing that they're going to make large, important saves for the defenders and for the team. And yeah, I'm really, really pleased because he's a good goalkeeper. He's had to be patient, and the performance that he put in against Chelsea was very, very good, as we've seen there, the penalty save he made, and he's got that opportunity today. And if he comes in and performs well, keeps some clean sheets, makes some good saves, and is reliable like we know he is, then he'll keep that shirt. And I think that could be really, really important for him.
Well, before we get to some fan comments from those of you watching along at home, some news just in. Ralph has confirmed that Jack Stevens and Nathan Teller are both out due to COVID. So, of course, we wish them all the best. And also Lianco as well. That's also been confirmed, also out with COVID. Well, let's get to some social comments then, see what's being said on the socials at home. Alan Ferguson, hello to you. He says, my daughter and granddaughter got me a Saints shirt for Christmas. I'm wearing it today for good luck. So Saints, come on, make my day and win. Oh, what a present that is, Alan. Keith Reynolds also getting in touch. Glad Fraser is in the squad. Russ Ward says good options from the bench. And we have a comment here from Paul. Let's get the 3 points today. Watching here in Perth, Oz. Thank you very much for your support. Joe, let's talk in more depth then about West Ham, shall we? Because it really has been a fantastic year for them. 6th last season, Europa League qualifications, 5th in the league at this time around. What do you make of the job David Moyes has done there so far?
Sensational, Kenzie, I think, in one word. It's just been above and beyond what anybody expected. He came in for the second time. They're in a relegation scrap. He slowly got them organised, and now they have a real solid foundation. They're a pretty horrible team to play against. I was at their win against Chelsea recently where they weren't at their best, but they just make it very difficult for the teams they play against. They almost make you do things that you do not want to do. It's just quite simply that. I think the dip in form recently has been down to injuries, nothing more than that. They've still been playing pretty well and probably haven't got the points or the wins that they've deserved in recent weeks. But yeah, like you said, finishing 6th last season in the Europa League, they were right up there in the top 4 push. Been the same for most of this season. But no doubt losing Ogbonna and Kurt Zouma to injury has been massive for them defensively. Creswell and Antonio have been out as well. So those are 4 massive players for them. But they do have a decent squad. They obviously now are in the last 16, the Europa League, have a bit of a break for that. And they went far in the League Cup as well. So across the board, having a very, very good season. And as I said, just a nasty team to play against. Souček and Declan Rice dominate games in midfield, and they're very dangerous from set pieces. Speaking to some of the analysts there, one of which is from Southampton actually, and they were just saying how often they work on set piece situations and how much time they spend on that. And you can tell, I mean, they've scored more goals from set pieces under David Moyes since he returned than any other Premier League teams. I think that's somewhere where Saints are going to have to watch out for today. But on West Ham, I think they are overachieving as a club. And I think for the likes of West Ham, Southampton, Crystal Palace, Leicester, Everton, that kind of group, and Villa, you can probably group them in there. All those teams will want to be pushing for a top 6 finish and sneak in there. West Ham been able to do it, and they really are the blueprint, I think, for how to build a solid squad, which has some good young players, but a lot of experience in there as well. So the recruitment's been good, results have been good, and hats off to David Moyes, because he obviously had a lot of haters out there after some of the jobs that he was involved with at Manchester United and Sunderland in the past, but it's good to see that he's rebuilt his career and showing what a good manager he is. So a very tough fixture for Saints today.
Joe, you did highlight, though, West Ham's recent dip in form. Even though they are 5th, they have only won 1 in their last 7 in all competitions. So, Dean, could this actually be a good time to be playing West Ham?
Yeah, potentially, Steve. I agree with everything Joe's just mentioned there. West Ham are a very, very good team with an excellent manager, some good individual players. But just looking at them recently, their recent form, I think they've scored 1 goal in the last 4 games in all competitions. They've lost 3 out of their last 4 as well, which obviously shows that they're not in fantastic form. But I think that is down to injuries. I think, like Joe mentioned, Zouma has been an excellent buy for the club. Ogbonna, again, those two, that partnership's not there anymore, so defensively they're not as strong. Cresswell being injured is a huge miss, because his set-piece delivery is fantastic. It really, really is. And again, Joe mentioned that how effective West Ham are from set pieces, and again, probably a reason why they're not scoring so many goals. But they're a good team at home. You look at the results they've had this season. Their last result, they beat West Ham 3-2. I think they've beaten Spurs at home. They've beaten Liverpool at home so far. Leicester, they put in a very good performance. I was at that game. They were very dominant in that performance. But they are beatable. At home, they've lost to Brentford this season. They've drawn with Crystal Palace. They've lost to Manchester United. They've drawn to Brighton as well. And And just looking at those fixtures, they seem to concede late as well. I think there's a couple of 90-minute equaliser for those teams. So, we haven't quite, with those injuries, haven't quite got the strength and depth to bring the players off the bench to maybe affect the game late on in the game. So there will be opportunities for Southampton today. So yeah, they could be playing them at the right time. You're right, Steve.
Well, before we come to you, Dean and Joe, for your final thoughts and your score predictions, let's head back to social media and take a look at some of the comments online. Rosemary Ricketts, hello. She says, come on, Saints, let's stuff West Ham like a Christmas turkey. I love that one. Saint194 on YouTube has said, Merry Christmas, Saints live team. Oh, very Merry Christmas to you too. Let's hope for 3 points this Boxing Day. That'd be lovely, wouldn't it? And Ryan has also got in touch. He says, I get the feeling Kenzie loves Christmas. Ryan, you would be absolutely correct. Love a bit of sparkles. Had to do it, didn't I? Now, for anyone just tuning in, if you did miss the team news, I will do a quick recap for you because quite a lot to digest. We know that Fraser Forster starts in goal today. Theo Walcott comes back in. Stuart Armstrong and Adam Armstrong are both available from the bench. Danelle Semeyu is in the matchday squad for the first time. And Ralph has confirmed since we've been live on air that Lianco, Jack Stevens and Nathan Teller are all out with COVID. So plenty to take in there. Joe, let's come to you then for your final thoughts ahead of the game, shall we? You mentioned earlier they are nasty opponents. So which way do you see this one going?
Kenzie, I think this is going to be very similar to the Crystal Palace game. I think there's going to be a lot of chances for both teams. It's going to be end-to-end. West Ham do give up a lot of goals. Yes, they have beaten Liverpool and Chelsea at home, but they are conceding a lot. So I think there'll be goals here for Saints today, and it's all about defensively being solid and cutting out the mistakes. So I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit and go for a 2-2 draw. I expect there to be goals, and I'd like to say that Saints could